No.
That means go, Abe, every time.
Oh. Hey, what is,
And here
what is
we
going on
go.
here?
Welcome to episode number 25 of You Had Me at Halo, where we talk about one of gaming's most storied franchises. And this week, we get to talk a lot about Halo Infinite. And we get to talk about its movement, its use of sprint, the radar, the gunplay, the weapons balancing, Bloom, the sound, bots, equipment, map design, physics, visuals, battle pass, and don't forget fruit physics. but before we get going, guys, I want to just go ahead and introduce our team today. So first off, let me just introduce Mr. Mike, aka Mr. Kage Maru. How's it going, Mr. Mike?
Hey everyone, I'm good. How you guys doing?
Good. Next up, we got Spartan Jesse, aka Don Cabeza. How you doing, man? Are you? What is going on?
Are you muted?
Yo,
I
Don,
think
Muted.
yeah, you're muted.
I couldn't tell if you're just trying to be creepy right there.
Yeah, I need to look at that, to be honest.
All right, we're just gonna move on to Ursel.
I'm well.
We got Spartan Ursel, aka Mr. Soulblazer. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Glad to finally be back on. I know I missed the last one, and I regretted it. So I'm back on and ready to go for this one.
Glad to
All
see
right.
Glad to have you back. I'm glad to have you back.
So, guys, I know we're going to rush through some of these intros today because we got a lot to cover, and we're going to try to cover it in a good amount of time. So, at first, I'm going to start off though, and just kick it off to you guys to talk about your general impressions. I believe everybody here got to spend a good amount of time with the call it tech test over the weekend.
Let's just call it a beta. I mean, it's not a beta at all, but let's just call it one. I'm sorry. I thought we were Polygon for a second.
All right. Well, Jesse, since you want to go first, tell us tell us some of your general impressions, some of the things that really stood out to you, just kind of how you felt this weekend and your general feelings as you were playing it for the first time and in a while.
As somebody who has always been campaign first and played a little of the multiplayer, because the way our setup always was, we had an Xbox, we'd play through the campaign in split screen, then my brother would steal the Xbox and he would be the one that played 2,000 hours of it, and then I just went back to World of Warcraft. This was the first time, and I liked it in 5, but I didn't play it a ton. I played it a good amount in 5. But this was the first time where Arena really felt good and grabbed me. And even for that very short PvP period of time, I felt like I'm actually okay at this. I will definitely play this at launch. And it was a nice feeling because I've never been that big on Halo PvP. And this was the first time I really felt grabbed by it because it still felt like Halo, but it felt like better than ever before Halo, and not aping Call of Duty or going for other things. It was just, we're going to make the absolute best version of what we do and not worry about others. And that it worked so well.
I think the terminology or the scientific terminology is Halo as Halo. But Mike, let's turn it over to you. I know you are somebody that, like me, plays a lot of the multiplayer, and I think you play a good mix of all of them. And so I'm curious what your thoughts were. Like, kind of where did you kind of find? Was there things that you were missing, or was this like just a home run? Like, what was your overall feelings on this version?
Exceeded expectations is the best way I can describe it, because they described it as rough, and it was I mean, it was unfinished clearly because it's technical preview, but it was more polished than I anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? That's really, I mean, it was just great. It was just great.
Yeah, that was I think that was a big surprise to a lot of people, because I think when we heard it was just gonna be a couple maps, you're gonna do bots. I thought, we're gonna get a little taste. maybe I'll get a few matches in, then I'll go back to playing, Death's
And
Door and whatever.
all three maps were so good though. And I
Yes.
just wanted
Yeah.
to go through and learn them. It's like they were all people were like, oh, they didn't like the first one. Like, no, I liked all three. They were very different. They had really good routes in between them. They had great sight lines, so I never felt like I was just getting shot from an area I wasn't going to look at, or like it always felt thought out and fair and so much better than it did at the start in 5, because everything in 5 just felt like it was made in Forge. And so it had a decent idea to it, but it very much felt like places like put together in that system instead of something finely crafted because they had enough time to go through and just do everything right from the start.
Mm-hmm. Those some good points in the map. So we'll come back on that here in a minute. I did want to hear Ursel, like what, so what were some of your thoughts on that? I know you're more of the co-op guy, right?
Yeah. So I mean, general campaign wise, I'm with Jesse in the sense where I never really been that big on online Halo. I played a bit in Halo 3. I think the most I played it was probably 5, and I still didn't play it that much. But with Infinite, it just felt good. You know what I mean? It felt fun to play. It could be because it was bots and I was actually having a good time, like dominating. Even I didn't get a chance to play with the Spartan difficulty. I just wasn't sure about that. But ODST, I was still it was still great.
Slightly better. They weren't that different from ODST.
Okay. But in terms of just how well it felt to play, Sprint felt good to me. Meleeing felt great, and Meleeing's kind of like something I feel hasn't really been that good in the game for the past little while in terms of shooting, getting close, and getting that final little melee off. I mean, I can go into the nitty gritty of so much random stuff, and we will. But overall, I just got to say it felt good,
And that's the crazy thing. Like, even though I don't play multiplayer unless I play with friends, I wouldn't mind playing this alone.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Like, I didn't have to play with friends. Like, it's insane.
I'm dying to see what Big Team Battle and Forge end up being, because those
100%.
could extend the life. So the Forge with the bots and being able, if you can make like combat scenarios and stuff, and you're going in as a team against bots, or you've got bots with you fighting other bots, like the amount of because they're going to have a similar logic system to what Battlefield's doing with their bots and their match types and everything. If they have anything like that, oh, it's going to be so good. I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think I feel like I'm more with Mike in terms of like how I felt with the game. I'm somebody that does play a lot of multiplayer, and for those of you guys that are showing up and maybe you're newer to our panel, half of our panel is really in tune with the lore and the campaign more than anything else, and then some of us are just really really addicted to the multiplayer. I find myself although I love all of it, I do find that I spend many hours in the multiplayer. I spent probably a good 2,500 last generation between Halo 5. I could have had 2 doctorates probably if I didn't play Halo, but so I don't know that that's going to pay off as well. But I will say that I was surprised by how quickly I got over the lack of some of the things, like the boosters, things like that. Like I thought that was going to take a while to adjust to, with all the hours I put into Halo 5. But I really quickly kind of adapted, and the thing that stood out to me was I felt like they threaded the needle probably as well as you could. You're never going to make this perfect for both sides of you're still, we'll get to some of this stuff too, because I think you still hear, I think the initial impression was like, from the community was almost like a sigh of relief. Like, hey, this is actually looks like, this looks like it's good. It looks like 343 didn't drop the ball.
Yeah.
They got something here. Obviously, we're still in the preseason. We know how that can go. Sometimes preseason doesn't translate to championships, but we're in the preseason. But everything looks good so far. No major injuries. We got through that part of it, and it just felt like there's no way you're going to be able to make everybody perfectly happy, but I think there's probably, I can't imagine them getting in between both of those and bringing those bases both to the table as well as they did. I can't imagine they could have maybe found that in between any better than they did. But yeah, I think we're going to get into I'd like to get into some of that. And one of the areas that I think that's obviously the most controversial with Halo is its movement, right? Like we go from classic to there's a huge divide in the community. Anybody who's played Halo for a while knows that is that's a major sticking point for a lot of people. Why a lot of people didn't stick with 5. Why some people with 5 are really coming in a little bit tepid about this one, without some of the, without some of the Spartan movements and things like that. So, want to get your guys' thoughts on that. First of all, overall the movement, that its use of sprint. Like, let's talk about that first. And I guess I'll go back to you. So, like, what was your thoughts with the overall movement? And it being also, I think it'd be fair too to kind of bring this into, if you have any thoughts of while you're playing this, how it might even mix with campaign a little bit as well.
I mean, of course, when we talk about movement, there's one thing we're talking about, right? More than anything else, which is the sprint.
Yeah.
And I think 343 did a surprisingly good job, which is something I didn't expect them to even accomplish at all, because I thought they were just going to figure, nope, sprint's in the game. It is what it is. The game's designed around this. But instead of that, they gave sprint another purpose. You know what I mean? They reduced the speed considerably. I don't know what the exact number is, but it felt like it was maybe 10% faster.
Clawbro said it's 10%, and I take his sources to generally be
100%. Only 10% faster than running normally. And you show up on the radar, which I have some thoughts on that, and we'll get to that discussion later. But I feel like they found that balance where you don't need to be sprinting everywhere to still be competing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You can... And with that, of course, comes the major complaint. Everyone who hated sprint had one major complaint with it, was that the maps are too big. The maps are designed around sprint. I'm forced to sprint because if I wasn't, I'm not going to be able to get to places as fast as I need to get to them. And I mean, it might be a little too soon to say this, considering it's only a few maps, but it felt like they might have fixed it, or hit that sweet spot.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a really good point, and you see that actually if you listen to, I like to listen to all different sides of that, but you'll hear a lot of the fans of the classics, a lot of the Halo influencers always bring that point up, like because a lot of times people who play Halo 5 said, yeah, that's the gunplay is great, it feels really great to move, the thing it missed out on was the maps, and a lot of times their point is, well, you're never going to hit a home run with the maps because of that difference between the sprint and the walking, and that kind of that herky-jerkiness of the the movement and running and hiding and things like that, and then having to spread out the environments. But now that you get that, you close that gap, it feels like, in terms of a map design, from a map design standpoint, I think that really puts a that helps streamline the process, right, for them, because you're not going to change. You're not going to change too drastically how the speed in which you're going to be, moving to things.
Yeah, not for an 8.9% speed increase, right? According to Ohana, sorry, in the chat.
Yeah, I heard that. Somebody said 9%.
9%. We can round up.
Yeah. Thanks, Ohana. Jesse, I think you were going to jump in there. What were you going to say about that?
It just makes sense for Arena for you to be moving that fast all the time. And then for the campaign and for big team battle, like the campaign, you're always going to have a grapple shot on a cooldown. So you don't need the sprint as much because you can grapple shot all the time. And you'll probably have access to vehicles a lot of the time. And then in big team battle, you'll have access to vehicles. So you only really need the sprint when you've got to go way further. And with the arena sizes, like I saw some people saying, oh, I'm surprised how big they are for 4v4, but I felt it gave more possible ways just to go around.
Yeah. It
still wasn't big, and you didn't need sprint to really get from side to side as much, especially because grapple shot was on a couple of them. It felt really well balanced, and it was very obvious that they have been playtesting the game for a very long time. I think it was a year or two ago that people like Shroud and Dr. Disrespect and other stream content creators and pro players and stuff were hinting that they were playing the new Halo. So they've been there the whole time helping balance everything. And now we get a chance to really stress test the servers, give a little bit more feedback. And even if that stuff doesn't hit live, like it's all there for their service aspect of everything. So it's very exciting, and I'm very surprised at just how good it felt, how good the slide felt.
Oh, yeah.
How good getting the super slide on a ramp felt. Oh, It's not as fast as Halo 5 can be when you're incredibly good at it, but it's not slow. And that was always my problem with the other ones, is you were very slow.
And I wouldn't
in
hold
the
my
long
breath
run.
on that, man. I've seen some stuff people stop pulling off with the grapple hook. They're able to do some crazy things already, you know?
Yeah, and I'm not that I'm going to push back. I think that statement though could be a lot more nuanced than it's just slower than Halo 5 or not as fast at it. Maybe
a type of speed.
Yeah. It is, and I definitely want to kind of get into that some more. But Mike, I want to get some of your thoughts too, because I know even lately you've been playing a lot more of the classics, multiplayer. Been seeing you online playing those a lot. So when you jumped into this, how did that feel to you as somebody who's been more with the classics? Did this feel a lot faster? Did it feel kind of in line? What was your overall impressions?
I mean, it felt good. Like I've always said that as long as the base speed is fast enough, like sprint, I can take it or leave it. I'm not a purist. I'm not whatever, that I don't want it. But sprint felt good. I thought they found a good balance for sprint. One of the major concerns with sprint in, what was it, Halo 4 or 5, was that it was like a get out of jail for free card, or, get out of trouble card. And then they balanced that. I thought they balanced that really well in 5 with, whenever you're sprinting, you don't recharge your shields. This one, though, you're slower. And it's never been a case of getting someone out of any kind of pickle, generally.
I mean, for 5 had thrusters too, right? That to me is my get out of jail card.
Yeah. That was much more anything of a get out of jail for free card than just this slower sprint. But the pace was good. I kind of agree with Jesse that the older Halos, Halo, I would describe that mostly with Halo 3. And I don't know if it's because of the size of the maps or just the general walking speed or running speed or whatever you want to call it. But 1 and 2 seem fine. Reach seem fine. 3 seem on the slower side. And as long as they don't go back to that, I'm happy. So the base speed is good. I only found out about the whole radar thing Sunday. And it just blew my mind. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, so that
you could hear people in a way that you couldn't. Yeah, so it's like I don't need the radar as much. I can hear the people running around behind me.
There were times that I did not see a bot wasn't on the radar, but I can hear him coming on me. And even for the state of the demo where the beta, where it didn't have Dolby Atmos, right?
I don't think so.
Not yet. So I stuck with DTS because it didn't sound nearly as good at Atmos, but the full release will have Atmos, so I imagine that'll sound great.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like I can tell it didn't have Atmos, and it was easy to track where people were coming from. Like it was so the movement speed, the one thing, Clamor, it's reliable. That I'm really happy about.
The short hops,
the half step,
those short jumps. That felt really good. So you weren't just like jumping way high over stuff. You're just doing a quick little hop no matter what you did, and that felt really good.
They definitely increased the clamber speed, that's for sure.
Like it just all felt really solid and good. Like it felt really polished. And I was really happy. They found a really good balance. As someone that likes the old and new and stuff, but I can't say good enough about how good the game felt.
And it's not a cyberpunk. It actually runs well on last gen. We don't know about the campaign, but the multiplayer, A-okay.
You know what? I was happy that they kind of went with what we discussed a long time ago. Even in the multiplayer, we all said that they would do 60 frames in the multiplayer or suspected, but 30 in the campaign was what we kind of talked about. If they're doing that in the multiplayer as well, man, they are really pushing these things hard, and that's good.
Yeah, because you were playing on you tested it out on the old systems for people who don't know, right, Mike?
Yeah.
And you that's what we found is they were running at 30 frames on the Xbox One X, right?
Yeah, and One S.
And One S. Well, yeah, obviously.
And that was like 900 up. They're taking advantage of dynamic resolution scaling, which I don't think they've ever had in Halo before, which is
5.
They're going all out
as well.
5 did it, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 5 did on the One X to try and get to 4K as well, and then the Series X just pushed 4K all the time, and it was really noticeable.
Yeah.
But it didn't fix the animations when you were more than 10 feet away from something.
Just floating across.
or the drawing and stuff. And that's another thing graphically. It was a lot more solid than 5. You didn't have like that shadow drawing where it was like a blotchy texture in the distance, and when you get close, there was like that cascading shadow that drew in. It always caught my eye, and it just always distracted me. And I'm so glad to see that's not, like popping and stuff isn't as prevalent.
And we'll come back to the graphics here in a moment, Mr. Mike.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Just real quick, I did want to like actually build on some things you were saying, because you were talking about getting around the map, and that's what what kind of when I was addressing what you were saying before there, Jesse, as somebody who I just always reiterate that, because I know a lot of people in the Halo influencer community, really don't put a lot of time into 5. It's just not their thing, and I understand into that and appreciate it. But I will say, as somebody who does, I actually found there's some aspects to what I felt with Infinite that it was a lot more that felt a lot more streamlined, or it was just smoother.
A smoother speed. Yeah,
it is a smoother speed, and that's what I want to really get to, because like in 5, when you want to turn a corner, you could use boost to kind of help you around things, but that's almost a little bit herky jerky, right? Like here, it was, if I want to round a corner, I just felt like it was effortless. Yeah. Whereas like when I'm sprinting in 5 and I want to like turn that corner, you don't turn it as well. It's just you kind of you just don't like to hit those angles.
5 is like you're a drag racer that just can take off really quick in straight lines over and over again, and then Infinite felt like you're just you're like a Porsche, and you turn really well, and you don't drop speed very often. It just felt. It felt great.
I actually enjoy. That's the thing. Once I got used to it, and I got used to the fact I didn't have the boosters, I felt like I was getting around the map. It was more fun just kind of running around the map and doing the little short hops, even doing. Now, I think I was attempting to do crouch jumps, and maybe they were just short hops. But did you guys try any of that stuff too when you're going over smaller ledges?
Not a ton, because it kept feeling like the game was doing it for me.
Yeah, so I don't know if that was just I could have just made those jumps without the crouch jumping, but either way, it felt like as I was going around there, I moved around effortlessly. I didn't feel like I had to clamber that often.
Yeah,
that was
the big thing.
A few times, and I think part of that's map design, right? Like they're not really designing it to force you to use clamber, which is something else we'll get into in a minute, because I think how they design the maps will have a lot to do. That's going to play into that whole movement thing, and so I think they left things in there to really appeal to the modern fans, like the slide, like the clamber. They're there, but for somebody that's maybe using a basic controller and doesn't want to get carpal tunnel, they don't have to. You can go around at a normal speed, normal straight, and play it like a classic, and you're not going to lose a ton. I think obviously as you get up to the higher levels, you want to have everything available to you, because every little percentage matters. But for somebody who just wants to casually play it on a regular controller, I think they've simplified it enough where you don't have to do those things if you don't want to, right? And so even though they're there, it's kind of fun to slide around actually, but you don't really need to do it. It's not. I don't think it has maybe the same benefits it had in 5, where you slid, you jumped, you boosted the other direction. You're not doing all that.
Eventually, though,
there
is the thruster.
There is a thruster.
How is that going to feel? We didn't get that or the repulsor, so I'm really interested to see if they're in the next one. Because they said at least one more flight. So that means a flight in late August, and then the game releases in September, and I'm still right.
What, September? No, I think you're way off on that.
Just let me dream. I know.
There were a few moments where I was like, thrust back, especially with grenades. I'm pressing the button, nothing's happening.
They always throw them behind you, though. You thrust back, you're just going to go right into them. They were so good at throwing them, so you want to thrust forward.
Though the other growing pain for me was I didn't sprint in Halo 5 often because the penalty, right? Your shields stop recharging. So it felt like I can't really sprint out of this fight. I'm going to die quicker. In Infinite, I had to kind of rearrange my mind a little bit where I'm like, no, I can still turn around and sprint. I can still kind of try and get out of here however I can.
Yeah, well, not only that though, I think it just again it keeps forcing you to play at a full speed, right? It doesn't feel like you're ever running and then going to look for a place to hide. You can you can move around full speed, and maybe you're going to sneak up. You know, one of the things I would try to do is, even if I'm recovering and going around, I try to see if I could, flank somebody, right? Because that was another option you could do, because you could run full speed and try to get around them while they're still engaged with other people on your team. So, like, I felt like it's interesting because even though this is theoretically slower, it felt like it was playing faster. It felt like people were more engaged, and maybe a part of it was you weren't boosting and getting out of there and running away. Maybe there wasn't that start and stop aspect of it. But to me, it just felt like it actually played at a faster speed. You were just more engaged. Like once you were engaged, it felt like you kind of finished off the fight. You didn't run away as often. So and obviously I will have to play more PvP to get a true picture of that. But that was my impression. It just felt like in situations where, maybe I would have tried to boost and then, go recover my shields. I didn't do that in these, for me personally. So we'll see how that works out. What else do you guys want to say about the movement before we move on to, I think the next one we should cover is the radar, because that ties into all that as well. All right. Why don't you elaborate on the oof?
Oh, are we going straight into the radar?
Sure, do it. You oofed your way into it.
So I feel like my opinion on the radar is not the general consensus, which people seem to say, great, you only show up if you sprint now, right? That's awesome. Maybe it's because I never really played Halo that seriously online, but for me, radar in Halo has always been kind of a staple. I played a crap load of custom, just local co-op of Halo CE, and like half of that was checking the radar, seeing when someone's around you, turning around and firing on them, because everyone else is screen looking. So you had to do your advantage. So it felt a little off to me. I didn't play PvP. I wasn't there for those 2-3 hours that played, so I wasn't sure about that. But radar feels to me like something that will be changed drastically depending on the game mode you're playing. You know what I mean? If you're playing a more competitive game mode, they might not even have it, or they'll have this version. If you're playing something like Big Team Battle, I feel like it should just be proximity instead of sprint only.
Yeah, I feel like it's gone. I feel like this is what it's going to be. But what are some of your, like, Mike? What's your thoughts on the radar?
I mean, it adds. Initially, I like it. Like, first impressions, I really like it because it adds like a risk versus reward with sprint. So that adds like a balance to sprint, because remember how when at first I realized, because I think I was playing with you, Abe, when I first realized that shields still recharge when you sprint, and I wasn't sure how I felt about that initially, but the limitation or the different the activation of the radar, that kind of adds a balancing act to that, so I like it. I don't mind it. Like Jesse said, the audio is just an entirely different layer to this, and it's done really well, even in this early build. So far, I'm a fan, but, we'll see whenever the final game, because it could, I mean, Ursul's right. It could be a detriment or an annoyance with maybe a larger map game or something. I'm so far I'm positive, but I'm also open that it might just be not so great.
I do wonder if that's going to lead to a faster play style. If you can just, if somebody's not looking, you can just move up regular speed on them and engage them. I don't know. I'm theorizing right now, right? Because we have to do a lot more PvP to really get an idea. It's almost like right now it's like practice. It's not game day, so we need to see what it's like in game day. But I see some potential, and I think you guys bring up some good points with the sound, because with the sound, if you are really engaged, you are going to pick up. The sound's going to be a lot more improved. We've heard it, on previous updates they had. We talked a lot about some of the differences in the sound and how it's going to do a better job alerting you of what's going on around you. It's still, when somebody shoots, you see them on the radar, so that pops up anyways. It just, again, you're not going to be crouch walking around the map at the end of the day. Not that I feel like if you're crouch walking, you don't know how to play Halo anyways. But but at the end of the day, it's another thing that just further deters people from doing any sort of camping. Not that happens a lot in Halo, but it makes it even less likely than it was before. And it just adds another layer of strategy to me. Like I said, when you shoot, you still show up, and if you sprint, you're going to show up. And it actually brings another. When you talk about that risk reward, again, going back to the sprint thing, the risk is the gap between the risk and the reward is smaller because of the radar, and I think that it again plays towards the classic fans who don't want sprint in the game. And just being honest, it does.
Yeah, I mean, like a 9% boost isn't really worth showing up on the radar. You know what I mean?
Right. No, it's not. It really isn't. Like, you really would have to know there's nobody around you to sprint.
Yeah.
So I feel like sprint's in the game really to appease people. It gives you that feel. And there is going to be times that you're just kind of out and you're away from the action. You just want to get there as fast as you can. Or you just know you're going to run into the fight and you want to just run and slide into it or whatever. So it's not like it's useless. I disagree.
Yeah.
I've heard some people say that. They're like, well, why do you even have it at all if it's going to be useless? I don't think it's useless. I just think the risk reward gap is it's not that big. And so for people who want to play this like classic, there's a lot of actual strategic benefits, especially when you get to higher levels, to not run around all the time, to just use your normal movement speed, which is higher, by the way. That's one thing we got to keep mentioning. Your base speed is higher, which is another thing that plays into the overall speed of the game. But so Jesse, did you have any thoughts on radar as well?
It seemed fine to me. Most people were on it most of the time, and when I played PvP, people were on it almost all the time because, I mean, you're shooting a lot. If you're using an ability or anything, it's like you're on there most of the time. It's just a slightly more strategic layer to, you don't have to crouch to not be on it. You can just be moving, but I can still hear you. And I imagine when Atmos hits, and everyone can do Atmos in any headset. So I think it sounds very good in these headsets.
That might be it for me. So. I've never really focused on the audio aspect of hearing footsteps ever in any game. I feel like I might have to start doing that in Infinite. Not to mention
that was one of the biggest things with Battlefield. When I got DTS, hearing people around me in Battlefield, even you think Battlefield is huge, but you're on a point. You hear them, and you hear that they're up in a building above you to your right, and then there's another behind you. Like it works way better than you'd ever think it would.
It does, yeah.
I did feel that I actually didn't even need to use radar as much, because I don't know whether it was just Infinite or I just didn't pay attention to it in the previous titles, but it was really obvious when your teammates were in combat. You know what I mean? Like, right away I knew, okay, they're fighting someone there, and I just immediately go there, then I meet whoever they're fighting. So I didn't even need to really even use the radar in that aspect.
Yeah, there's a lot of indicators on the screen in the UI just to let you know where things are happening when you get the little exclamation point over their head.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think that's some good pointers on the radar, and radar is still something that's mixed. There was an article.
It might be old radar in competitive. Who knows how they're going to?
There's a lot of stuff we don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I have a gut feeling that initially they're going to try to push us all together at the beginning and force us on just a gut, just to get everybody used to the the new balancing and everything. And then from there, like, if you guys remember, for those of you that were around when Halo 2 came out, I mean, that pissed off a lot of people that were Halo CE fans. Like myself, I hated the default balancing and the starting weapons and things like that. And then they came out with the battle rifle playlist, and so there will be other playlists down the road that will take into some of this consideration. But I kind of expect it to be along these lines right now, because I think they did this as a way to offset some of the the risk reward for the sprinting. But I do want to touch on the gunplay, though. So it's something we definitely want to spend some time on. So overall, it sounds like most people were pretty positive on the overall feel.
Boy, Mike, the rocket launch is garbage.
Nick had some complaints, but
well, I guess he's playing on servers nowhere near Australia, so the travel time felt bad. But rocket launcher is great.
All right, Jesse, why don't you go? Like, talk about some gunplay right now.
The Commandos, the VK Commando is one of my favorite guns in any video game ever.
Yeah.
That was fun.
The moment you follow someone well and you just pop, 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 pop right in their head and they're gone. And every shot just it felt so good. It sounded so good. Oh, that gun's great. The Needler's very strong, but it's very strong in a very specific range.
Yeah.
If you're too far, it's not great. If you're up close, they can just melee you and shoot you and before you're going to get super combined. So that felt overall decently enough balanced. I wouldn't be surprised. They've had 2 more months of balancing as well. Mm-hmm. The sound was great.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I watched a lot of they put up videos on Instagram of all places a lot where they would go through the sounds that they were making. And a lot of those were the gun ones. And going back and listening to those, I was like, yes, that sounds so good. And you just see exactly how they make it, which is really cool. But the feeling of everything, the assault rifle felt, and I don't care what Jam says, the assault rifle felt very well balanced in that it's not completely useless. It's useful at a certain range. It really loses its accuracy if you're too far away. It can do okay up close to get someone low enough so you can smack them and take them out.
Yeah.
The pistol felt very good. I could see them adding a round to it, maybe so 2 perfects could get you 2 kills. But other than that, I didn't. Pulse carbine felt a little weak.
Yeah.
Sometimes it tracked really well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
like
very
that one.
much, you can just decimate someone's shields, go to a pistol real quick and get them. Mm-hmm. But that's hard as shit.
And the travel time is like, I'm not sure if the shield's gone or not.
Yep. It was so slow.
Once
so slow.
I made my enemies like a very bright pink, and it made it way easier to see when their ammo popped or their armor popped.
Huh.
The shield. So
I know
the default red is
that
actually
too.
hard.
I think they might be
And
working on
yellow
making that.
was a very noticeable one.
Yeah.
So they did say that they'll look at making it more obvious instead of just like a quick flash and then there's like electric crackles on them. That'll be something a little more obvious.
There's like little red particles, like they're kind of like flakes. It looks like when they're running around, they're
the red was the hardest to see, which was annoying because that was default.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's probably one of my few complaints. I think we'll probably pick up on that when we get to some of the visual things. But no, you bring up some good points with the weapons. I actually will want to dive into some of what you said there, Jesse, because as somebody who prefers the precision weapons, it's one of the reasons why I like to play Halo is the all the precision weapons that
you have a
they have in the
precision
game.
shotgun now. The Bulldog can do some damage at range.
Yeah, I feel like having more, I'm trying to think of how to put this because you can't think of it just in a vacuum. Like if you're playing, especially if you're playing with a lot of different people, you're playing with randoms and things like that. Having it where it's so obvious that everybody wants to grab a precision weapon, it makes it a lot harder to grab precision weapons if you really like to use them. And we know that that out there, there's a lot of people, a lot of gamers that like to use spray stuff, in other games, and I think keeping some balance there where it's not just obvious that you want to always have, like where it's best for everybody. Like if you play Halo 5, I can tell who's bad on the map by who's using the automatic weapons. If you're using an automatic, then I know that you're not very good.
But the SMG feels so good.
Because I know anybody who's good they're going to stick with their pistol unless they find a better precision one on the map. So this is. I like that even as somebody who prefers I love the Halo 5 pistol. I love using the battle rifles and DMRs and the other Halos. I like that mixture because it just means that there's going to be a little bit more dynamic engagement even with your own team. You'll have some people running in there with the ARs and you can sit back and I like to kind of sit back while they're running in there and take their kills. That's what I do to Mike all the time. I let him run in there and use up his ammo clip and then I just one shot and take the kill. But as long as you keep those ARs useful, I think that's going to leave the people that really want to use the battle rifle, that really want to use the commando, things like that, they're going to have a better chance to grab that stuff. And so I think you really want that mix. You want people with different skill sets and different play styles to have things that work better for them, and it's not always this is the better weapon if you're any good at the game. So at least not make it as clear cut, and I think it really was, Halo 5, for as good as everything felt, it was very flat. Like everybody, when you get past a certain level, everybody's using pistols until they grab a power weapon.
You have to master the pistol to reach a certain level in the game.
Yeah, and I think this is going to allow a little bit more diversity. And I even noticed some better players. I was watching some videos and seeing how other people were playing, and we're kind of mixing it up too. They were using the AR, and then they use the pistol. They go back and forth, and that's good. I think it's gonna allow a little bit more diversity of game styles and gameplay.
Speaking of picking up weapons, you guys noticed the way that they did weapon spawns for some of the guns.
Yeah,
that was an interesting concept.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're going to stick with that in the final version. Did they say anything about that? Is that something that's going to be?
I hope so.
Yeah, they just mentioned
it kept it fresh.
Yeah,
I mean that's one of the aspects that kept the 3 maps so fresh was that sometimes you get a battle rifle, sometimes you get a commando, and it was nice not having every. I mean, but then it was kind of weird because Bazaar, I don't think that had different items. I think that was all locked, right?
Some of them were locked, but then some of the other ones that were more hidden, like it would be the Ravager or it would be the shotgun.
Shotgun, right.
Yeah. There were certain things that changed.
Yeah, some seemed like it had more dynamic weapons, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Another one, because like Live Fire had a number of them. You had the heavy weapon, you had the side weapon, like the precision weapons.
I like
the plasma carbine was always there, though.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
The plasma carbine was always by.
Yeah.
They had certain things that always stayed, certain things that changed, and I bet you that'll be stuff they really rotate a lot.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I like how obvious it was. I mean, I love map pickups as much as the next guy, but like having to figure out exactly where they spawn in a certain map, like, hey, this one's on this little railing here, this one's on this little platform up here. It's fun, but at the same time, it's also something you don't really need to have. You can make it obvious where guns are. It's okay.
I'm interested to see what the ordnance drop system is going to be like, because that's just their normal respawn, but then it's dropped in by a Pelican. Yeah, so I wonder if that's going to be, it always drops in this spot,
or that's interesting.
It can drop anywhere, because I mean, if it's a Pelican coming in, you could have it drop it at random spots, so you can't camp them as much.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Though, going back to the weapons really quick, I remember we had this really big debate with someone about the assault rifle and how overpowered it was, or if it wasn't. And one thing I noticed is I did a few tests based off just that. And if you miss even like a few shots, because of how fast it shoots and because of how big the wide spread is, that's not enough to finish someone off. Right? So I feel like it's pretty well balanced in that sense. In fact, I tried taking out a bot with a needler. He just destroyed me. I think I got through maybe half my clip until I blew up, and I'm like, okay, all right, needler beats assault rifle. Good to know.
And depending on the distance, you really have to like do the controlled burst.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you're just gonna lay on the trigger, it's not working. It doesn't work nearly as well.
Yeah.
Because of the bloom.
Yeah. And I thought the assault rifle was balanced really well. I think most of them were.
Yeah, it didn't feel like trash for once. As it has so often.
I loved the BR. And I heard Nick complain about it. I don't know. Maybe that was his server.
This one. This is the Halo 2 BR. This one's
the
Halo 5 BR was the beast one, mate.
I think that must have been his server talking, because I don't know what to me it was. I was better with
opinions before. His opinions are always bad.
That's why we try to get him on, so you can badger him on the show. But yeah, the BR felt a lot better than Halo 5's. Definitely. Like that was actually that was probably my favorite weapon on the map. Was just grabbing the BR just because it felt really, really crisp, and it was. It was predictable, right? But yeah, let's go back to Bloom real quick, because that is something I'm surprised actually that we haven't heard too much complaining about that, because that was a big complaint about Halo in the past when they tried to do it. Did you guys? What's your overall thoughts?
Was it on anything besides the AR? Because I know that the sniper rifle just has more of a delay, but it doesn't have a bloom. Like
we got to talk about the sniper. I don't know what was going on. I think that was tuned. That was tuned for mouse and keyboard. I think.
It's not as much bullet magnetism. Yeah.
The commando has a very small bloom when you're not aiming down sight. I think.
If it did, I didn't notice because it definitely has recoil and pulls up.
All right, so for the audience that doesn't know exactly what bloom is, which is definitely not me, it's when you shoot and the cursor moves a little bit, right? Like it rearranges your sight.
The reticle.
The reticle gets a little
wider.
Bigger. Okay, yeah. So precision goes down.
You don't know exactly where it's gonna go.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I knew that.
So if you're holding it over somebody's head, some of those bullets will start missing. If you're just
makes
down
sense.
on the trigger. So
with the AR, you really noticed it.
Yeah, no, for sure with the AR, and that's one of the things with the AR. You going to want to burst it a little bit, or let it come down before you go back and use the rest of your clip, or you're going to have to reload. What about the sniper? Was anybody good with that? Because I was like, I just started ignoring it. I was like, I can't use it right now. I was bad, even with the bots. I was bad with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it felt great when you hit. Sorry, Mike, go on.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, literally, like the same sniper always feels amazing when you actually land the shot, but you're right, it was so tough. That and the rabbit, not the rabbit.
Great for arena.
What's that gun called?
Not with the controller.
Skewer.
The skewer.
Skewer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The skewer. Yeah, that one also. I've the first like 3 times I picked it up, I think I missed all of my shots, and then the 4th time something clicked, and when you land a shot with that gun, it feels amazing. Makes you want to just keep trying.
On maps of that size, you generally. At least on controller, I was just hip firing and doing okay. So especially the skewer kills anywhere, so it was only ever really hip firing with it.
Yeah,
you don't have to hit them in the head with that. And that's the thing. That was the weird thing about the sniper. Like I actually felt like I was a little bit better, had a better chance with just hip firing than I did trying to zoom in. And
there weren't any super long sight lines for the most part. You were always
in the maps. Yeah, fair enough.
That was me with any weapon. Aim down sight doesn't feel that.
I didn't use it with the commando or anything. Yeah.
You mean zoom?
I feel like I need to tweak that to be, 10% slower or something. I felt like I was just oversteering or over aiming.
Oh, you mean the sensitivity
down the sight? Yeah.
Yeah, for the ones that actually have a scope, like the battle rifle and the commando, like I barely ever used the scope, just because everything was so close that I didn't really feel like I needed it. Even on like the second one, recharge, I think it was called. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Even when you're looking from top to top, even that felt fine hip firing for the most part. I really didn't ever feel the need to aim down a precision weapon scope.
Yeah, I kept trying to, and I think you're right. It wasn't as effective. It definitely wasn't as effective as it was in the last game. And I wonder if that was intentional. Again, this is one of those things where they're. It's like, hey, we still got all that stuff that was in 5 that you guys thought we were going to get rid of, and we didn't get rid of it, but we kind of did,
And the zoom doesn't descope, which is interesting
for certain weapons
because it doesn't add any precision.
Yeah,
so
just kind of reduces your FOV, right?
Zoom doesn't descope. You mean you don't get
now
shot?
when you're aiming down a scope and you get hit, you'll descope. But when you're just holding zoom on like a shotgun or something that doesn't have sight, yeah. Because that just pulled you in, but it didn't descope you.
I never really used it, especially for those weapons. So
I used it on the shotgun a few times because that actually worked at mid range with the bulldog.
Yeah, I was surprised with the shotgun has a nice grouping to it for decent range.
You think we'll get more weapons like the what was it called? Was it called the heat wave or?
Yeah, I use the heat wave a lot.
No, you think we'll get more weapons like that kind of like have alternate modes of fire? Because that was really cool. That was something like Dead Space.
A lot of the other ones they've talked about are more ones that we already know.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's that many that we don't know yet. And there definitely doesn't seem to be anything Promethean. They were all brute.
I missed the light
they
rifle.
were all benched.
That's a good sign. I was really happy not to see Promethean weapons. It's telling me that they're going to wipe them out in the first scene of the game. But we'll get back to that on a different show. So I definitely want to. So what weapons I think we were overall. I mean, there's probably some balancing tweaks we should expect.
Yeah, Ravagers wicked shit.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they toned down the Needler a little bit. I think that was a little
too powerful. Completely different now because this is just a forked up build. So
yeah. Yeah, you don't know about that stuff. So, and really, for anybody that's played Halo before, you know that they will tweak the weapons are going to get tweaked.
Yeah.
There's going to be some that are going to get debuffed, and some that are going to get more powerful. And some of the things that you really, really, really like right now is. Yeah, you're going to pick it up one day and you're just going to be like, oh, that happens in every game. So it's going to happen. So don't get, fall in love with too much on one thing. Yeah. Just overall, I just think overall, I feel like they got it right for the most part. It does seem like they got the foundation and the basics good. I'm not really. I feel like the sniper needs some work with the controller. It almost feels like right now the sniper is made for a mouse and keyboard, and I'm hoping that they tune that a little bit better for controller because, and I realized that there was too much auto aim in 5. Like you could pretty much just sweep it in an area and they could be around the wall and then somehow the bullet would go around and trace them and hit them in the head. So like it's definitely not doing that anymore, but I think there's probably a happy medium they can find in there. What about the equipment, guys? So like there's only a couple of things we got to use. Real quick, thoughts on the equipment. I guess we should start with the big one. Who got to use the grapple shot a bunch?
Ooh, I
got
to use it with a hammer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
How good did it freaking feel like?
Yeah. Every time I had the hammer, I always had to seek out the grapple shot, and it felt really good, and I liked how there was momentum built into it. It wasn't just like you go where you aim. Like if you look in a certain, in a direction, you can kind of control where you're
sling yourself.
Yeah, like slingshot yourself around.
So good.
So like
and having that the entire time in the campaign. Oh man, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Who needs to roll?
So
it felt completely different from like even Titanfall, which is a great game, right? Like, but that just felt like again, I don't know if flat's the right word. It just didn't feel as like this one really uses, like you're saying, the physics, and it makes it feel more dynamic. Where you can.
It felt like in Titanfall, it felt like you hit a point and you pull directly at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
And here it depends on the angle you're hitting it from. That it will work into it. So, every time I grabbed it, I tried to just grapple onto something before I got killed.
If you ever got a grapple during like a boosted slide, I went completely across the map in like 1 second. And I was never able to replicate it. But
and that was with 2 days of people on the demo, 3 days, sorry, on the technical test, right? Who knows what's going to happen at release?
I think it was really balanced because, I think I said in a previous podcast where I was worried about it maybe being OP'd in the multiplayer. Not at all. Like, no, not at all.
It's a lot of fun though. We're gonna make some custom games and we're just gonna use grapple shots all day.
I'm dying to see what
we have a Spider-Man at home.
Man,
like, the equipment in general was pretty well balanced. Some people may have been a bit concerned about like cloak or especially overshield. And, that it would be a way to get out of trouble. But you look at it, you polish it, and then you put it on. Like, it takes a while for you to put it on. Same thing with the drop shield. You drop it, and there's like a delay.
Oh, yeah. Pretty
before
long
it
delay.
pops up.
Well, that's a strategic
drop shield's kind of...
Yeah.
It's kind of useless anyways, but keep going.
It wasn't because if you're trying to use it when you're already being shot at, it's too late. It was... I'm going to move to an area. I'm going to go to an overlook. So I threw the drop shield. Then I've got this thing right at the overlook. And then I'm there and I'm shooting the crap out of them. They turn around and their first 3 or 4 shots can't hit me. And it's really good for that. It's not a defensive maneuver. It's an offensive maneuver more.
Yeah, like in live fire, where how the opposite end, that battle rifle commando spawn, it was on the corner on with the ramp and the bridge. Grab the drop shield, you grab that battle rifle, you get up on a little station area in the corner, and you drop it down, and it was a nice way to get some, high fire to the people that are running around the grass without worrying about getting shot back. So
it has its use, right?
Yeah,
it's not the same use as a bubble shield. That's the thing.
No, it's like Jesse's saying, it's a strategic use, and I can see it being if Infinite has what was the horde mode for Halo called?
Firefight.
Firefight.
Yeah,
Firefight. Firefight makes a comeback, or if you can make that in Forge.
I bet you can't.
Yeah.
Can?
You said you bet you can't or can.
I'm saying I bet you can. I bet you can
Okay,
do
all
that.
right.
yeah.
I heard can too.
Yeah, I thought he said can't. I was like, jeez.
I think
but
what
yeah,
I love the most about the grapple hook are the fail videos. I watch so many of those. Someone jumped up to get the hammer, grapples. I think he wanted to aim, or they wanted to aim for the ground by the hammer. Grapples the hammer, just falls straight down. Man.
I can't wait to see. I mean, even just in that short period of time, seeing some of the videos people were coming up with the grapple shot, and I agree. I think it's well implemented. Obviously, it's limited use, so you really only get a few shots to do something cool, which is going to make those moments a lot of fun. But like I said, we're just going to do custom playlists and just do grapple shots, and I don't know that the combination of that and the physics. I don't. There's nothing else on the market, I think, that has. There's a lot of games that have that sort of function in there, but nothing that feels close to what that felt like. And I was really surprised because it doesn't come through. When we were watching last year, when we watched them, demo the game, the campaign, it didn't look that fluid to me. I'd have to go back and watch it. I don't know if things just changed, if they added physics to what we saw, but it just seemed a lot. For lack of a better word, it seemed a little bit boring when they were showing it off last year. I was like,
he was very robotic in what he was trying to hit. I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this. So he wasn't playing it like someone just.
The little trailer had a better showing of the grappling hook, right?
Yeah. Because then he pulled himself forward, and he had the lightning grenade, which we haven't seen yet.
Oh yeah,
and
looking forward to that.
I forgot about that. Yeah, it's a lot of cool stuff to come there. So like a lot of good possibilities right now. I am curious to see what happens when they throw thrusters in there. Are they just going to work like the old ones? Or are they going to do something a little bit different in there? So that'd be interesting as well. We need those obviously for Nick to play. Otherwise, he's not going to play.
I think they're guaranteed to be there in SWAT. Why do you think they're guaranteed to be there in SWAT?
It's like that's maybe that. We should start trying to get money from these bets from him. But let's move on. Let's move on to the next thing. I did want to talk. So we did talk briefly about the maps early on. Real quick, coming back to that. So overall thoughts. You guys want to elaborate more on the maps? Like, what was your favorite ones in there? Overall, just some impressions compared to some of the more recent ones we've seen from 343, and even looking back to classic Halo, do we see some potential of these all-time great maps coming back?
Yeah, I mean, Bazaar, Reach. I mean, all of them are really good. Bazaar and Recharge, I think I liked more than Livefire, but that might have been just because I played the most of Livefire. I don't know,
right?
But all maps, one of the things about all maps, they all flow really well. Like you always have an option or something to do or somewhere to go or something to kind of fight for, and it's well balanced because it didn't seem like the firefights were focusing in on one spot in any of the maps. I mean, maybe in Bazaar it was the center, but that kind of makes sense in that one. But
in PvP, you got it more with the bots because the bots would have their direct paths they'd go at certain times,
especially right in the beginning.
You've seen them PvP, walking as a full troop everywhere.
Yeah, they always went.
Then
towards,
you're dead the second you see them.
Yeah, they always came around the corner on the grass and live fire together, or they all went towards the rockets and Bazaar, and then they all went towards the overshield and Recharge. That in the beginning, and then once you blew them up and scattered them, then they would start playing regular. But that was very predictable. But they all had a nice flow to them. They all had something that was, even in Bazaar where you had the two different markets or stores on the ends, there was still reason to go there because you had additional equipment there, different weapons. But big fan of the maps. Big fan.
Yeah, I think the thing that stuck out to me the most was just the diversity again, that they didn't feel all the same, right? Like they didn't look the same, they didn't feel the same. They all had their own personality. That was one of the things that Halo used to do really good under Bungie is like their maps, Halo's one of the few franchises in probably in multiplayer history where people know the names of the maps. Like there's a handful, obviously Call of Duty has some now after all those years and things like that. But I'd say Halo more than any other game, like their maps, people know them by name. They know that, they just have their own characteristics, their own, they're almost like their own, thing. And they're just not like an afterthought. Now that's how Bungie's were. I feel like, 343's did kind of all blend together a little bit, especially in Halo 5. As good as, like I said, as much as I like the game, the maps there's really only a handful that stood out in any way. And I don't know that any of them will go down as like all-time greats. You just look at visually and then just the way they're laid out. Like Bazaar is a little bit more chaotic. It felt like, it's a little bit more unpredictable. Whereas, they all played very differently, right? Like everything was different from using your grapple shot and going for the hammer and what was it called?
Recharge.
Second recharge, yeah, and recharge, and just kind of like trying to get own the high ground in that one, and then. So like, yeah, just overall, I just like the way that they all played a little bit differently, different strategies. And it in some ways they felt like different games because of how they played out with whatever mix of weapons and layouts they had. So I was really pleased with the initial offering. So hopefully now the key is, are they going to keep that up? How many are they going to have? How good are they going to feel? We got to see that. Like I said, this is just preseason. That's just a few of them. But Jesse and Soul, like, any other thoughts on the maps from you? I think you guys mentioned them a little bit earlier as well.
You can go, Soul.
I only played the first two. I wasn't able to play Bazaar. It felt Livewire felt to me like an intro map almost, in a way, you know what I mean? Like there was a reason they chose that map to be the first thing that people played Halo Infinite on. Introduce you to the new sprint, to the new weapons, blah blah blah. Then you get the hook shot, the grapple shot in Recharge. Also, Recharge looked amazing, like visually. I regularly stopped and looked around. I'm like, oh, this looks really. Livewire didn't look that good. Recharge looked amazing. In terms of map design, man, I never really focus on that too much. I shoot what shows up in front of me. I try and find the weapon spawns that I can. You know what I mean? One thing I noticed for sure was that you didn't need to grapple nearly as much. Sorry, not grapple, clamber nearly as much. In Halo 5, almost every map you were required to clamber up certain things, and this one it felt like nope, just a little jump and I'm there. Right? It was not a requirement anymore.
Yep. Jesse, did you have any final thoughts on the maps?
I liked them all. Generally, I wasn't a huge fan of most of Halo 5's. I thought they were there were some good ones, and so much of that game ended up just feeling like they were rushing to finish it after it had released for the multiplayer side of stuff. So this already feels like they're just ahead. Like that year delay has really helped, most likely, for this to feel like a full product that they're going to add to instead of kind of a product that they're going to finish, which is very nice.
Yeah. So I did want to go back to one thing you did say, though. So like, I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but it is an aha moment. We kind of keep going back to like 5. It felt like 5, the maps were built to force you to use the Spartan abilities, where this one is. These maps are built to de-emphasize whatever Spartan abilities carried over, which is, again, like they exist, but they kind of not as much as they did. So, all right. So moving on, we talked about a little bit about the bots. Did you guys want to say anything else about them?
They can teabag.
Yes.
Yeah, they're learning, right?
And strafe and duck and a bunch of stuff where I'm like, huh. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, the bots. We talked about that in the last show, so I mean we won't have to go into it too much. But I think there's a lot of potential, and they showed potential, right? Like even though we kind of once you got used to them, well, for the most part, even the Spartan bots, we can whoop up on them when you play together and stuff. I didn't think the Spartan bots were that much harder than ODST, if at all. I almost feel like that was a placebo thing. They were trying to see if we would start to play together or be scared or I don't know. Like they didn't feel like they're any different. But the ODST ones did impress me from the fact that they did seem like, even though we were winning, they were at least like they felt like you were playing people.
Yeah, they were fun to fight.
Maybe not.
Right?
Yeah. They were maybe not like diamonds, or Onyx players, but they felt like like people, like maybe a little bit below average or whatever. But they did some things well above average too. So yeah, overall I was impressed with them. Did you guys like have any?
You think we'll ever get like Halo Tars, kind of? You know what I mean? You think that's ever in the books?
That is something we actually I think we talked about that last show or the show before that. Why not? Like, why wouldn't you? Like,
yeah,
that just seems like that just feels like something that's going to happen. Like the Drivatar version of, in Halo.
Yeah, I'm curious just how much better the bots will be at launch compared to, I don't know, a few years down the line. Like, will they be better? Will they actively change as they play more? I'm kind of curious in that regard.
Well, they promised us that we would get with Spartan bots, they would start to feel more like Diamond, and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I almost wonder if something happened there, because like I said, it didn't feel like much of a change. I am expecting them to be better, at least the highest level ones to be a lot better by the time we get to the final game. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. All right, so like if no other hardcore thoughts on bots, I guess we'll move over to the visuals, and this is more the area, Mike. This is kind of the thing you focus on. So, what do you want to say about the visual area? I know you went through the different Xbox consoles, including the last gen to all the way up to the Series X. What was your overall thoughts visually about the game in its unfinished state?
It was good.
Were you staring at the watermelons or the bananas?
Oh God, I saw that. I could not believe some people, like, how much free time they must have. I'll just say that. No, yeah, it looked good. It looked a lot better than I expected, really. We'll see how much it evolves for the final, but so far it looks strong. The 1S version's a bit on the soft side, I'll say. Same thing with the Series S. The Series S in 120 hertz mode is pretty low with the resolution, but it runs. I think it runs better than the Series X in 120 hertz mode. So there's like this trade-off, but it looked good. It looked good overall. On PC, it was a bit weird, because that's what I first played it on, because I was stuck in that never-ending pending loop on the console all Friday night. But I got into the PC version just fine. I mean, maybe it would crash sometimes whenever I was searching for games, but that I'm assuming that had fewer players than the consoles. And on the PC it was weird, because I was able to run it at like 70, 80 frames per second if I unlocked the frame rate. But if I locked it to 60, it hovered around 55 frames per second. It would never hit. And I have like 2 hours of footage just randomly recorded, just showing this. And it just, but it looked good. It looked really good. I like the lighting. The lighting was a standout. The explosions, I'm not a big fan of. I'm not going to lie. Like the explosion, like I was playing Halo 2 Remaster campaign right before this preview hit, and I thought the explosions in that looked better. But that's a minor nitpick. But so far it looked good, other than the few little odd graphical issues.
Like the fruits.
Yeah, especially on the 1S, especially, there was sometimes like just random like asset pops, like the textures and stuff, or shadows. Yeah, I don't know what the big deal about the shadow resolution. Like, you might, if you're looking for it, you might be able to see some like low res shadows and stuff. But it for the most part, I thought that even that looked good. I do like the different little like shader effects. Like whenever your shields are hit, you can see on your arm, like the honeycomb pattern of the shield, like those little details. Those are the details. I don't give a crap about fruit. Seeing the shield of the honeycomb effects of the shield on your armor, that to me was much more impressive. And I was happy with it. So far, so good.
Any other strong thoughts? Say, Jesse, what about you? Did you any thoughts about the visual aspect of the game? Or kind of move on?
Really clean. I only played on
Yeah.
the Series X because they pretty much only just put you in one thing.
Yeah.
Because I was signed up for everything, but I guess my laptop, they were like, no, you're not good enough. Go away. But yeah, on the Series X, it looked great. When I was streaming it a lot, so it was like a 1080-60, still looked really good. Even then, felt perfect. And then when I got off stream and was playing at 120, it felt very nice. And I'm really looking forward to see what the full polished up, optimized, better final release is, and just what it's going to be in campaign, because. Like they're hitting every bell and whistle. They've got huge areas. They've got a ton of verticality in campaign, and having it be that crisp and clean, if it can match that at all, it's going to be a very good-looking game because the textures are awesome.
Yeah.
And I think it really is going to be a next-gen showcase in a way people didn't think it would be after the demo last year, and it does show the year delay definitely seems worth it. They haven't talked about ray tracing. So no idea what that might be, if in anything, if it's even only in the armor hall when you're looking at your gear and your weapons and stuff. So I am excited.
Though, if we're talking about the visuals, what do you guys think of the intro? I loved it personally. I thought it was a really cool way to add some personality of your character. But the moment I watched it, I'm like, yeah, not everyone's going to like this. That's for sure.
Nobody really. I didn't see a whole lot of complaints about it, though. I was surprised.
Well, until they started.
Half the time it broke with the server.
Yeah, I've seen some people complain about going through every person.
Yeah.
That it takes too long. Some people said that they preferred Halo 5, where it just showed everyone making their own pose. I was pretty cool with it. Like the one time I remember someone disconnected, so it looked like they died,
and then the bot was right behind them.
The next person's just putting his hands up, and that's just like, I was out of my chair.
Will you guys still like it when it's just 4 people flossing in the beginning?
Well, let's put it this way. I think there's got to be some way for them to pay for the new maps and new things that come out. That is their way of doing that. You're going to show off each individual person. You're going to have a bunch of people paying a bunch of money to get their cosmetics. And I don't really care about that. But you know what? Thank you for the free maps and, paying for the rest of the, funding the rest of the game. So if that's the price, then fine. Go ahead.
Eternal Umbra asks, who'd you guys use as your personal AI? I went with Fret. Red triangle. Your AIs. Did you guys change the AIs when you played?
I went with the circle, with the V. I think it had like an upside down V. If I remember correctly, it was the second one from the left.
Yeah, I think I went with Fret, if I remember right. Pretty sarcastic throughout the entire game.
It was a she, and she was like, she would make crack jokes about pink mist or something. Like, I forget. I have to go back to my footage. I really enjoyed it.
There were a couple. There was like the crazy sarcastic one. Then there was the Erika Ishii one, who's the voice actress who's been in just a ton of stuff. Then there was the Butler one,
the British one. Yeah,
I can't remember this. I can't remember their shapes.
He had this one line that cracked me up. Oh man, you killed someone with a hammer, and he said something. I can't remember it. It was just really funny. I think there's a lot of potential with the AIs. Also, a lot of potential for them to be not the best. So it's kind of like,
The one thing that I noticed, I don't know if I was just imagining things, but sometimes it seemed like they got a little chatty. Like you wouldn't hear from them for a while, and then they just would not shut up for a couple minutes. And it wasn't like extreme, but it did seem like they could have, stretched it out a bit more or made it more consistent.
Yeah, I didn't mess around with the AI. There's a lot of potential for them, though. So, people were talking about when I was playing, and then I just forgot to go back in the menus and look because I didn't even know that was a thing at first. But yeah, I can see them. I've already heard other people say this, but yeah, Samuel L. Jackson. You got to get some of these guys in there.
Or like Sarge, Like that'd be a great AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's a lot of fun things they can do with that. But speaking on that, so there customability, there was some options that I did mess around with. We did see like you could change the outer hue of your opponent, which Jesse's already talked about that. I like that. Overall, I did see a lot of customability. I spent a lot of time actually messing around with the controller and just tweaking how the game would play, which is something I suggest everybody to do. Like depending on your style, you're going to probably want to map things differently. If you don't have an elite controller, especially, you're probably going to want to remap things based on how you play and prioritize.
I think Sick was using bumper jumper.
Yeah, and like it's just a lot of ability to. I mean, you can even change the sensitivity for all the different zooms, which is interesting as well. It'd be interesting to kind of mess around with that stuff. So yeah, a lot of options. I was really happy with that. I hope that everything kind of takes away from that and going forward. But did you guys have any thoughts about that before we kind of? I think we got just one or two more things, and we'll wrap this up.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention was, remember when the armor coatings were first announced, and people were like, "Oh, there go all my primary colors." Well, no, they're still there. The base armor coatings are all still there. Solid blue, solid red, purple, whatever the heck you want to do.
You know they're going to give a ton for free.
Yeah, exactly. But at the very least, the base ones are still there. You can still pick them. Go crazy. Yeah.
Yep. So a lot of stuff there. What was your thoughts on Battle Pass? I've heard some people complain about that, or they didn't like the way it's implemented.
If it ends up being like the Master Chief Collection and the full thing, because they did say all this is placeholder. These numbers are placeholder. The amount of levels isn't matching what's going to be at the end. If it's anything like Master Chief Collection, any mode, they all have like overall challenges. So every mode, it's not just daily or weekly. It's also overall. And so kill 500 grunts, and then kill 1,000 grunts, then kill 1,500, and it just keeps going. And there's like 900 of them. So there's going to be a ton of ways to constantly gain experience. I doubt it's going to be just daily and weekly.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
I would like a vague or general experience based on, because like I wasn't a fan how I had to keep on picking things, it seemed like. I'm not so familiar with battle passes, so maybe that's normal. But I hit a wall where I wasn't leveling up or gaining any points because the challenge that I selected.
Yeah, they turned off most of the challenges and only had the challenges on you could do in bot matches. So it really limited the pool. Normally there'd be like 900 there would be a large amount of things that could go into the daily and weekly pool that they just turned off completely.
I still needed to reset a couple of them. There was like kill 5 vehicles, some stuff like that I couldn't do, and I'm like, swap, and we're out.
Yeah.
So
it was definitely they kept saying it's all placeholder. This isn't indicative of what the end's going to be. So I'm curious as to just how close to the MCC one it is, because if it's the MCC one, it's going to be the easiest freaking battle pass ever. You just whatever you do, however you play, you're always going to be gaining something.
Yeah, so I think the moral of the story there is we'll just have to wait and see what the final version looks like, because they're also taking feedback. By the way, for anybody who's like listening right now, they are on Twitter. They're asking not just for what you like, but what you didn't like to tweak. And there's going to be, this game looks like it's highly customizable. There's probably going to be a lot of tweaks to the game before the final version. There has been in the past between betas and the final version, and then even after they release, they're going to continue to tweak it. So we should just
there's
just
another
keep the feedback.
Flighting, right? Sorry, just really quick. Is there another flight that's going to happen?
They said at least one more,
and they'll invite more people to this one.
It would be the same thing. As long as you are signed up now, you'll be eligible to get in the next one.
Steven, there'll be another flight, so keep an eye on that.
Yeah, and I think they did say that they were going to grow beyond this initial pool.
Yeah, this one was going to be PvP and big team battle focused with more people in it, because they won't have the bot.
That's going to be fun. That's
So it sounds like, I mean, for those that didn't get in this time that were signed up, you have really good shot. It sounded like, because they did talk about that, and they're going to get a lot more people. This is the smallest one. It sounds like there's going to be more than just one more, honestly. So, I guess we'll wait and see what that next one looks like. But I know we did want to wrap up right about now. So I guess I'm going to go around and just give everybody any final thoughts on this, and then we're going to just kind of wrap up. Any final things you want to add that maybe you might have missed, or just final thoughts overall about the game?
I just want a grapple shot forever. I just want to aim at a tree and swing around it, and I just want to break the game and have a ton of fun. I cannot wait. Yeah,
like when any of my criticisms are more nitpicks or maybe changes, like I hope they allow you to change or edit the customize the UI. I didn't like how the weapons were on the bottom right. Every other Halo has it on the top right. And if I'm in the middle of a firefight and I'm glancing up to pay attention to my shields, I don't like needing to go to the bottom right-hand corner, stuff like that,
Yeah.
But that's relatively minor. Same thing with the friend and foe system. That I could talk about that for hours. But yeah,
that's why we saved it. That's why we saved it for last, so you wouldn't be able to.
I know.
I know. Sorry about that. But yeah, so like Mike, what's your kind of your final thoughts on the game, or
I'm
what we
even
saw
more
in the game?
excited now. Like I kind of wish I didn't play. And like, there's a very small part of me that wish I didn't play, because now the wait is even harder.
You just want to play the game, right?
Yeah. I remember because I did a bunch of traveling yesterday. And for a fraction of a second, as I was coming home, coming in my apartment, I thought, great, I can play Halo. And then I had to catch myself and realize.
So we all got to get on Team September. We just will it into existence, no matter how unlikely it is.
There was that kind of a leak, right? One of the places mentioned a November release. Crap, what was it?
It was Xbox Mexico, I think.
Yes.
It was like, why wait until November for something Halo? Like, they were talking about something else Halo related, and then said, why wait until November? I was like,
who knows?
But those places also never know.
Yeah.
That's one thing we've been told, is that the other social media teams just don't know.
Yeah.
They really don't. It's very American driven on all of that stuff. Even the British studios, it all ends up being the American PR are the ones who actually know.
Yeah.
So how about you? Final thoughts on that?
So I'm not sure if you guys saw the tweet by John like a day ago or so or something, but that kind of summarized my thoughts, and it might be a little too soon to say it. In fact, I know it's too soon to say it, but I had fun. It was a really solid game, and I think anyone who played the game had a good time. Even people who weren't into the classic Halos, you still have Sprint, you still have a great gunplay, and they probably had a great time. I think it's back. I think that's it. I think Halo's back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was my thought. I just I feel like they're there. That's there was a lot of anxiety around it. I think even coming into E3 this year, and even launching, it's like, okay, you're kind of waiting for the shoe to drop, right? And it looks like they got the foundation, and it was really fun. To me, it's been a lot of fun to see the energy around it. And, in this world, we need some things that bring people together. we got enough things to fight over, right? And it was really cool for at least a weekend to see, even fans of the classics and the modern kind of coming together and seeing that energy around the game. And it's hard to imagine it ever getting to that 3 level because of the competition. But I think this has a chance to be the biggest it's been since then, and it really does. Again, it's the preseason, but I feel like the preseason went better than I expected, and just like I think what you guys were saying. So really looking forward to the next version, and that is, I guess, it for today. Yeah. We only covered 15 things, so hopefully next time
we were under an hour and a half. Nice.
Yeah, we went through those pretty efficiently. I'm going to let you sign off, so like usual, since you're back with us this week.
Yeah, out of curiosity, wait. Anyways, yeah. Okay, so if you guys are still with us, and if you haven't seen our show before, this is You Had Me at Halo, a Halo focused podcast. And we're part of XboxEra, a channel, a website, a forum, a community, basically. So if you enjoyed,
movement.
Well, not yet.
not a movement. Stop it.
So if you enjoyed the episode, if you enjoyed our discussions, our talks, please check the channel out. We regularly review things with a pretty level-headed take, I feel. Our website is a great source for news, and our forum is, I want to say, probably the best place to talk Xbox for an English-speaking audience, I'd argue, if you're looking for forums, I should say. Not like there's too much other competition, but still, if you're looking for a good place to talk Xbox, come join our forums out. And if you really enjoy our content, we have a Patreon. Every little bit helps. And yeah, thank you for watching.
All right, guys. Well,
Thank
thank
you,
you very
everyone.
much. Thank you, chat. And we will see you again soon.
See you guys.
Bye.